Millionaire CEO spent one night with Cinderella. Now she's his new employee. Sometimes all it takes is one mistake. One message sent in the quiet of desperation. Not to a brother, not to a friend, but to a man who had forgotten what it meant to care. She didn't know his name. He didn't know hers. But that night, across a city too cold for second chances, a stranger chose kindness. And it changed everything. Not just for her, but for the man who hadn't held a child in 6 years. Until now, the message she shouldn't have sent. The first thing Emma Baker noticed that night was how loud silence could be when your baby had finally stopped crying. Lily had screamed herself to sleep again, her tiny body curled against a worn fleece blanket, her bottle nearly empty. Emma had watered it down more than she should have. Guilt gnawed at her, but there wasn't enough formula left to do it right. She had exactly $2.13 in her checking account. The fridge hummed, a soft mechanical lullaby. Somewhere upstairs, a neighbor stomped through their ceiling in heavy boots. The baby monitor let out a soft hiss, then the smallest exhale, Lily's breathing steady now. Emma didn't cry, not anymore. That had stopped around month 2, when the tears no longer helped. Instead, she stared at her phone, thumb hovering over a text she'd rewritten 3 times already. Pride was a sharp thing. It carved her from the inside out. But tonight wasn't about her. She read the message one more time. James, I hate to ask again, but I need $40.00 for Lily's formula. I get paid Friday. I swear I'll pay you back. Her brother had just moved to Seattle for work and she hated bothering him, but she had no one else. With a breath like surrender, she hit send, and then slumped back against the fraying cushion of her thrift store couch. Minutes passed, long, still ones, the kind that made you question everything, your choices, your dignity, your worth. Then her phone pinged. She looked down. Unknown number. I think you have the wrong number. I'm not James. The words hit like a slap. Her stomach dropped. She clicked back through her message thread. She'd mistyped his number by 1 digit. Oh God, she whispered, fingers trembling as she typed. Emma, I'm so sorry, please ignore that. Wrong number. So sorry. She threw the phone aside, burning with humiliation. Her heart raced in the dark. She covered her face with both hands, willing the ground to open up and swallow her whole. She didn't hear the next ping, just felt the small buzz on the coffee table. Unknown number. Is your baby going to be okay? Emma stared. The question wasn't accusatory. It wasn't nosy. It was concerned. Why would a stranger care? She hesitated. Everything in her said, don't engage. You hear stories, warnings, red flags, but exhaustion has a way of bending your instincts. Emma, we'll manage. Sorry to bother you. A known number. I could help. No strings. She blinked. The word help looked foreign. The no strings part made her scoff softly. Emma, thanks, but I don't take money from strangers. Unknown number. Smart policy. I'm Alex. Now I'm not a stranger. What formula does your baby need? Emma paused. Her thumbs hovered. Part of her wanted to block the number. But there was a flicker inside her, something dangerously close to hope. Emma, why would you help someone you don't know? No response came for almost a minute. She nearly turned the phone off, already regretting everything, when it buzzed again. Alex, let's just say I've been fortunate, and I remember when I wasn't. That line sat heavy in her chest. Emma exhaled and typed slowly. Emma, Family Gently's. It's the only one Lily can handle. She has colic. It's also the most expensive one on the shelf. I don't feel right about this. Alex, what's your Venmo? She hesitated, then typed it in just to see. Seconds later, her phone buzzed again. Not a message, a notification. She gasped. $400, 0 cents. Not $40, 0 cents. She scrambled to text him back. Emma, this is too much. I can't accept this. Alex, consider it an advance for the next few months. One less thing to worry about. That was when she broke. Not when she was laid off from the firm. Not when she sold her jewelry for rent. Not even when James left town. But now, When someone unexpected, someone faceless and nameless, decided to care. A single tear slid down her cheek. She stared at Lily on the monitor. Tiny fists curled near her face. Emma, thank you. I don't know what to say. Alex, you don't have to say anything. Just take care of Lily. It wasn't until she got back from the store, formula and groceries tucked into a single cloth bag, that something clicked. She never told him her daughter's name. Chapter 1. The Name You Shouldn't Know. Emma stared at the phone screen long after the message faded. Her thumb hovered over the thread like it still carried heat. She hadn't said Lily's name. Not once. Not in the text, not in the follow-ups. She'd just said, my baby. That was all. So how did he know? Outside her window, Chicago's winter blew sideways, turning streetlights into ghosts. Emma sat in the silence, the kind that presses into your ribs when your baby finally sleeps, and your world is still broken but momentarily quiet. Her thoughts raced. She reached for her phone and typed, Emma. I didn't tell you her name. A minute passed, 2, then 3. Her fingers clenched tighter around the phone. Alex, you're right, you didn't. That was it. No explanation, no apology, no justification. Emma's stomach twisted. Was this a scam? Was she being watched? She stood up quickly, moving to the apartment door and sliding the extra chain lock into place. Her eyes flicked to the baby monitor, to Lily's chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Calm down. The voice inside her sounded a lot like her brother James's. Rational, even-keeled, the opposite of her. Still, she sat again and typed. Emma, why did you say her name? How do you know it? This time the reply came quicker. Alex, I'm not trying to scare you, I promise. I only figured it out this morning when I told a friend about the wrong number text. He works in HR at my company. Your number is 1 digit off from your brother's. James Connor, right? Emma froze. She closed her eyes slowly, pulling her breath back in. James. Of course. She should have guessed. He worked in HR for some big tech company, she always forgot which. And she had just added his new number last week, too fast, not double-checking. Still, it didn't explain everything. Emma, so this was all a coincidence? Alex. Yes, but maybe not a bad one. You mentioned you were an accountant, said you'd been looking for work. I have an opening for someone with your background, short-term contract. Emma narrowed her eyes. Amy, I don't do handouts. Alex, then think of it as a job interview. Real work, real pay, real daycare too. She laughed, out loud, sharp and bitter. Emma, daycare. Sure, I can barely afford gas. Ours is on-site, free for employees. Lily would be with you during work hours just down the hall. Emma stared at the screen. Too good. Too convenient. Too deliberate. Emma, why are you doing this, really? The typing bubble blinked, then stopped, then started again. Alex, because I couldn't save my daughter, and I thought maybe I could help someone else keep theirs safe. Emma's breath caught. She didn't move for a long time. The next morning, Emma woke to the sound of Lily's cry, short and shrill like an alarm clock made of need. She stumbled out of bed, her body aching in all the familiar places, lower back, shoulders, feet. She changed the diaper one-handed, warmed the bottle, and sat with her daughter in the crooked armchair by the window, watching the sunrise crawl up the sides of buildings. On the table beside her, her phone buzzed. Alex, if you're still interested, we'd love to meet you. 10 a.m. tomorrow, Meridian Technologies HQ. Ask for me. No pressure. Just a chance. Emma looked down at Lily, who stared back with wide, milk-drunk eyes. She was always watching, even before she could understand. Emma had no suit, no car, no childcare, but she had a reason, and it was staring back at her with formula dribbling down her chin. The next day, she wore her best. A navy blazer from a thrift store, a blouse with a small coffee stain hidden beneath her scarf. Lily was nestled into a carrier across her chest, wide-eyed and bundled tight. The building rose like glass into the Chicago sky. Meridian Technologies, sleek, mirrored, and so far from her world, that she half expected security to stop her at the door. Instead, a guard looked at her kindly and said, "Miss Baker?" She nodded, stunned. "Mr. Reed is expecting you, right this way." They moved through marble floors, past walls of framed patents and glowing digital art. Emma's scuffed boots echoed loud and uncertain. No one stared, but they didn't exactly smile either. Then a woman in her 50s, crisp blazer, soft eyes, greeted her with warmth. "Martha," she said, extending a hand, "come with me." Emma followed her to the top floor. "This way," Martha said gently. "You'll be meeting in Mr. Reed's private suite." Private suite? The door opened and Emma froze. Sunlight poured in from the floor-to-ceiling windows. A sitting area, leather couches, a small kitchenette, a portable crib already assembled in the corner. "Water?" Martha offered. Emma could barely speak. "Yes, thank you." Then, a voice behind her. "She looks peaceful." Emma turned and saw him. Alexander Reed was taller than she imagined. Dark hair brushed with gray at the temples, expensive suit, hands that didn't seem like they ever touched hardship, and eyes, those sharp, impossible blue eyes, that looked at her like he meant it. "Mr. Reed," she said stiffly, standing. "Alex, please." They shook hands. His was warm, firm, but brief. He didn't linger. "Thank you for seeing me," she said. "Thank you for coming." A pause stretched between them, awkward and charged. "I should explain the texts," he began, stepping back. Emma's guard went up instantly. "I don't make a habit of asking strangers for money," she said. "And I don't make a habit of giving it," Alex said evenly. "But that night, something about your message hit me harder than it should have." She looked at him. "Why?" His gaze dropped, flickered toward the crib, then back to her. "Yesterday was the anniversary of my daughter's death." The words landed heavy. Emma's heart cracked open. Not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Like it still lived in his throat, too sharp to swallow. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "She would have been 8, he said, leukemia." Emma touched Lily's back, a quiet reflex. Alex nodded at the baby. "That night, when you asked for help, it felt like maybe a chance to do something I couldn't do before." Emma swallowed, suddenly unsure of everything. "And the job?" she asked carefully. "Completely real," Alex replied. "Your brother never told me how bad things were, but when I mentioned your message, he knew it was you right away. Said you were the best accountant he's ever worked with." Emma flushed. "Howard, we talked about you a lot," Alex added, handing her a folder. "This is the contract. 3 months. Full benefits. Confidentiality required." Emma opened it. Her breath caught. The salary, the hours, the position, it was more than generous. It was life-changing. She hesitated. "Why didn't you just tell me who you were from the beginning?" she asked. Alex sipped his coffee, considering. "Would you have believed me? Hi, I'm a CEO. Let me send you $400, 0 cents, and hire you." Emma laughed, once, short and real. "No," she admitted. "I figured," he said softly. Lily stirred in her carrier. Emma moved instinctively, rocking her slightly. "There's a small kitchenette through that door," Alex said. "Private. You can make bottles there or warm food. She's welcome to stay here with you until a daycare spot opens." Emma blinked. "You're unusually accommodating," she said cautiously. "I told you, we need someone with your skills," Alex replied. "And the merger details are sensitive. I want you nearby." It was a good answer, but the look in his eyes said there was more. And for the first time in a long time, Emma didn't feel like just another number. Chapter 2, The Office with the Crib. Emma had been in offices before. Generic ones with humming fluorescent lights and stained carpets. Ones where break room meant a coffee pot on a folding table and benefits meant leftover bagels from yesterday's meeting. But this was different. Meridian Technologies' top floor didn't feel like an office. It felt like a world above the world's sunlight soaking into floorboards made of reclaimed wood. Air that smelled faintly of lemon and old books. Even the silence had money in it. Thick, quiet money. Still, None of that struck Emma as deeply as what she saw when she returned the next morning. A real crib, not a portable playpen or some makeshift nap mat. A full-sized, wooden crib, tucked into the corner of the private suite next to her temporary workspace, complete with soft lavender sheets and a little plush elephant sitting neatly in the corner. Beside it, a diaper caddy, formula on the shelf, a bottle warmer. Her hands paused on the strap of Lily's carrier. She wasn't used to being expected. Martha stepped in just behind her. "We hope it's okay. Mr. Reed had it delivered last night, said it was non-negotiable." Emma didn't know what to say. She set Lily down gently in the crib. The baby blinked up at her with sleepy eyes, cooing, as if even she could tell this was a moment worth remembering. The room Martha led her to next was unlike any office Emma had ever worked in. 2 large monitors, a sleek laptop already docked in, files stacked with surgical precision. Someone had thought through everything. Even the chair was ergonomic, built for hours of sitting, but not the stiff kind. The expensive kind that whispered, "You belong here." "Just let me know if you need anything," Martha said before leaving. "Coffee, printer access, or just a moment to breathe." Emma sat, and for the first time in months, she did. Her first task was simple: familiarize herself with the books from one of Meridian's smaller acquisitions. A regional logistics firm folded into their operations 18 months ago. The numbers weren't alarming at first. Just routine audits, month-over-month comparisons, departmental expenditures. But halfway through her review, Emma paused. A decimal in the wrong place? No, not a mistake. A shift. Subtle, but intentional. The kind of change that only someone looking for a pattern would notice. She marked it with a yellow flag, and kept going. 2 hours later, there were 8 more flags. By noon, Lily had napped, eaten, and was now gently kicking at her soft giraffe toy under the filtered sunlight by the windows. Emma watched her between spreadsheet tabs, grateful and wary all at once. A soft knock. Alex stepped in, this time no suit jacket, sleeves rolled to the elbow. "How's your first morning?" he asked. Emma tilted her head slightly. "Still waiting for someone to tell me this is a prank." He smiled, just the corner of his mouth like someone out of practice. "Unfortunately, it's real. Welcome to corporate America." She gestured to the files. "I've already found a few things. Small discrepancies. Might be nothing, might be something." Alex's attention sharpened instantly. "Show me." She turned the monitor, pointed to the flagged transactions, walked him through her reasoning. Clean, efficient, numbers only. When she finished, he leaned against the edge of her desk, thoughtful. "That's what I was afraid of," he said quietly. Emma raised an eyebrow. "You knew?" "I suspected. That's why I needed fresh eyes, someone without bias. Someone desperate enough to say yes?" Alex looked at her then. No defense. Just honesty. "Yes." Emma crossed her arms, leaning back. "I don't like being manipulated." "I don't like lying," he replied, "but I will when it protects the company, or a baby who deserves formula more than I deserve peace of mind." Silence settled between them again, not hostile, heavy with things they weren't saying yet. Lily squealed from the crib, her tiny fingers curled around the plush elephant's ear. Alex smiled at the sound. "She's loud." "She's healthy," Emma countered. "Fair point." He stood straighter. "Keep digging. Quietly. Don't flag anything in the company system. Just track it. Let me know if it goes deeper." Emma hesitated. "Shouldn't this go through your finance team?" Alex's jaw tightened. "Not yet." She narrowed her eyes. "Is that a CEO call, or a man with secrets?" Alex's gaze didn't flinch. "Both." That night, after Lily had been fed and Emma tucked her into the second-hand bassinet at home, she opened her laptop again. The numbers whispered stories if you listened close enough. Tiny amounts moved monthly. Internal expense reports that didn't match supplier invoices, adjustments buried in department transfers, small enough to pass casual review, but together, they added up to millions. 3 million by her estimate, over 18 months. Emma sat back and realized she was sitting on a bomb. The next morning, the rhythm resumed. Coffee in hand, Lily babbling in her crib, monitors glowing, numbers dancing like ghosts in clean rows. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Vincent Harmon, the CFO, showed up at her door. He didn't knock, just stepped in like he owned the air. Tall, perfectly tailored, cold eyes. "Mrs. Baker," he said, tone polite but sharp, "I wanted to see how you're settling in." Emma minimized her screen. "Just fine," she replied. Vincent glanced at Lily. "Interesting setup you've got here. Private suite, baby crib, top floor access, not a typical onboarding." Emma kept her voice calm. "Mr. Reed prefers a hands-on approach." "Does he?" Vincent stepped closer, picking up a file from her desk. "Word of advice. Be careful what you dig into. This company's financials are complex. We wouldn't want someone misunderstanding what they're seeing." Emma's fingers curled around her pen. "Thanks for the advice," she said coolly. "I'll let the numbers speak for themselves." He smiled. No warmth. Numbers lie all the time. It's people who decide what they mean. And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving behind a silence far more dangerous than his words. After he left, Emma picked Lily up, holding her close to her chest. Her heart pounded. This wasn't just about spreadsheets anymore. This was war. And the only thing more terrifying than what she'd found was what someone might do to stop her from proving it. Chapter 3. The Ledger That Lied. Emma didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed with Lily curled against her chest, the baby's breath soft and rhythmic, while Emma's thoughts spun like blades. Her laptop glowed faintly on the nightstand, casting shadows on the wall. Rows of numbers, reports, dates, all blurring into something much bigger than spreadsheets. Something deliberate. Something dangerous. She'd seen cover-ups before, at her old job, but never like this. Never this clean. This corporate perfect. She opened her notebook, flipping back to the hand-scribbled summaries she'd started on her second day at Meridian. Vendor discrepancies. Duplicate invoice routing. Memos signed by employees who no longer worked there. Patterned write-offs at quarter close. And the same internal sign-off, VH. Vincent Harmon. The next morning, she arrived early. Too early for Martha or the cleaning crew. The lobby lights flickered to life as she entered. She wore her warmest coat and a look she hadn't worn in years. Determination without room for fear. She passed the crib, set Lily down gently, and turned on the monitors. The files she'd downloaded the night before had names like Q3_final adj and regional_yield_optimization. Innocuous to the average eye, but Emma wasn't average. And she was no longer afraid of seeing what she knew was there. By 9 a.m., she had found the thread. And by 9:47, she was certain someone had been siphoning money from multiple divisions, hiding it in strategic write-downs, vendor consolidations, and even donation accounts. It wasn't one-off. It was a system. And every piece pointed to the CFO. Emma leaned back in her chair, heart pounding. She wasn't just auditing a broken ledger. She was auditing a crime scene. Alex showed up not long after, coffee in hand, loosened tie around his neck like a signal that something in his world was unraveling too. He paused in the doorway when he saw her face. "You found something?" Emma turned her laptop toward him and didn't speak. She didn't have to. He studied the flagged entries, her notes, the calculated siphons, the totals in the margin. His expression tightened as he took it all in. Then one word escaped his mouth. Quiet, sharp, like a curse spoken into a prayer. "Vincent." Emma folded her arms. "I thought maybe I was imagining it." "I'm not, am I?" "No," Alex said, straightening. "You're not." A silence grew between them, not of doubt, but of consequence. "This is the kind of thing people go to prison for," Emma said. Alex met her eyes. "This is the kind of thing people cover up to stay out of prison." She swallowed. "You knew." "I suspected. That's why I hired you. Not just for your resume, but because you weren't in anyone's pocket." Emma stared at him. "And here I thought I was just a mistake in your phone." His face softened. "No, Emma, that was the only part I didn't plan." Later that afternoon, a message popped into her inbox. From the Detective Elena Russo Financial Crimes Division, Chicago PD. Subject: Inquiry Re. Meridian Technologies. Emma's heart stuttered. She clicked it open. Miss Baker, I'd like to schedule a conversation regarding financial irregularities currently under review. Are you available to speak today? Her phone buzzed almost immediately after. Unknown number. She answered with a shaky hello. Ms. Baker, this is Detective Russo. Are you alone? Emma glanced at Lily, asleep again in the crib. She moved into the kitchenette, closed the door gently. Yes, I'm alone. We received an anonymous tip about internal embezzlement at Meridian. Your name was mentioned. Emma's pulse roared in her ears. Mentioned? How? As a possible accomplice. The air went cold. Alex didn't react when she stormed into his office. Not until she slammed the door behind her and dropped her phone on his desk. They're investigating me. He nodded once. You know. You knew. I got the same call 20 minutes ago, he said, and I was told I'm being investigated too. Emma's voice was a whisper, trembling. He's setting us up. Alex nodded again. He's smart. He knew I was getting too close. But what he didn't count on? He looked at her, something fierce behind his eyes. It was you. Emma blinked. Alex moved to a locked drawer in the credenza behind him, opened it, pulled out a thick black folder. When he turned back around, his entire demeanor had changed. I haven't been honest with you, he said. She crossed her arms. That much is clear. I've been building a case against Vincent for 6 months, quietly, off the record. He's not just embezzling, he's laundering. Through shell companies overseas using fake contracts and phantom vendors. Emma sank into the nearest chair. You hired me to dig, but you already knew what I'd find. Alex nodded, his jaw clenched. I needed evidence I didn't plant myself. Evidence from someone with no ties to me, no stake, someone clean. Emma looked at the folder on the desk, then at him. And you picked the single mom who texted you by mistake. He didn't smile. I picked the woman who stared down a CFO in his own company and never flinched. That night, Emma didn't go home. Martha appeared in her doorway, pale and breathless. They're coming, she whispered. Board security, police. They're saying you and Alex have been funneling company funds. Emma gathered Lily in her arms, hands shaking. I didn't do anything, she breathed. I know, Martha said, but you need to leave. Now. Emma hesitated. What about Alex? Him told me to get you out. Martha opened a hidden panel behind the office bookshelf, a private elevator. Emma stepped inside, heart pounding, Lily clutched tight. As the doors closed, she caught one last glimpse of Alex, standing alone at the boardroom door, eyes locked on hers through the glass. He mouthed 3 words. Trust me. Go. Chapter 4. Don't tell anyone, not even him. The private elevator moved like a whisper, silent, smooth, purposeful, as if it knew the weight of the secret it carried. Emma stood in the narrow space, Lily pressed to her chest in a sling, her heart galloping in her ears. Beside her, Martha didn't speak. She only stared straight ahead, hands clenched around a worn key card. Below them, the top floor of Meridian was exploding with chaos. Security, police, accusation. They said your name, Martha had whispered moments before they stepped into the hidden door. They're calling you his accomplice. The words still echoed in Emma's chest like a drumbeat. When the elevator opened, they stepped into a cold underground parking level, empty, dimly lit, the concrete echoing every sound. A black SUV was waiting at the far end. This is yours for now, Martha said, unlocking it remotely. Temporary license plate, burner phone in the glove box, diapers, wipes, formula, cash. Emma turned to her, trembling. How do you have all this? Martha's expression didn't change. Alex knew this day might come. Emma slid into the back seat, still in disbelief. You planned this, she whispered. We prepared for it, Martha corrected. There's a difference. Lily whimpered, sensing her mother's fear. Emma stroked her cheek, forcing calm into her voice. Shh, baby, it's okay. We're okay. Martha handed her a manila envelope. Inside is an address. A safe house across town. Stay there. Wait for Alex's contact. You'll be protected. Emma hesitated. What about him? Martha's jaw tightened. He's staying to face them, to keep attention on himself so you can disappear. That's the kind of man he is. The safe house was a modest apartment tucked into a quiet brick building in South Shore. Not luxurious, but clean, hidden, and stocked with everything Emma and Lily could need. Emma locked the door behind them and collapsed on the small couch, shaking from the inside out. She had never felt like a criminal in her life until today. Until she was running. Lily began to cry in the next room. Emma went to her, held her tightly, whispering nonsense. Anything to comfort her, to ground herself. Then she sat at the kitchen table and opened the envelope. Inside, a new cell phone, an ID badge for E. Bailey, a made-up name, a single sheet of paper typed in Alex's sharp, clean font. Trust is earned. I'm asking for yours. Wait 48 hours. She wanted to scream. She wanted to believe him, and she wanted to run. That night, Emma barely slept. She kept the lights off, afraid of who might knock, of what would happen if someone broke the lock, if someone tried to take Lily. The next morning, she paced the apartment with her daughter strapped to her chest, murmuring, bouncing, heart aching with questions. Why her? Why now? Why him? She didn't have to wait long for the next answer. At exactly 9:03 a.m., the burner phone buzzed with a message. Unknown number, are you safe? Emma hesitated. Emma, who is this? Unknown number. It's me. I had to ditch my phone. They took my laptop too. I'm out on bail for now. Vincent's trying to make it look like I'm behind the theft. Her fingers flew across the screen. Emma, why are they saying I'm involved? Alex. Because you found the evidence, and that makes you a threat. She sat down hard on the couch. I transcribed this interview as many times as I can. I need your help. You understand the files better than anyone. FBI is willing to meet. They want to see what you found. Elma, why me? Alex. Because the truth doesn't matter unless someone's brave enough to speak it. Emma looked down at Lily, who had finally drifted to sleep. If she walked away, she could disappear. Use the money. Start over. But that would mean Vincent won. That would mean Alex took the fall for a truth she had uncovered. Emma, I'll go, but I'm not doing this alone. Alex, I'll be there. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., FBI field office downtown. The next day, Emma left Lily with Martha, who'd arrived with new clothes, a stroller, and a kiss on the forehead, as though they'd always been family. Then, Emma walked into a federal building with her spine straight, her hands steady. Alex was already there, pale, tired, and dressed in a dark coat that didn't quite cover the bruises under his eyes. But when he saw her, something shifted. Not relief, not gratitude. Something quieter. Something like home. The agent they met, a sharp woman in her 40s named Keller, listened without interrupting as Emma explained everything. The audit trail, the forged vendor records, the timeline that began 3 weeks after Vincent was promoted. She slid her report across the table with the final page marked. Estimated embezzled, $3,100,000 0 cents. Agent Keller leaned back, whistled softly. You were the wrong number, huh? Emma allowed herself a tired smile. The very wrong one. The plan was simple. Let Vincent think he's won. Let him make one last accusation in front of the board, and let the FBI walk in with proof and a warrant. It would all go down that afternoon. Are you sure? Emma asked Alex as they walked toward the elevator. About what? This won't blow up in our faces. Alex paused. It might, but if it does, at least it'll blow up together. She looked up at him and before she could stop herself said quietly, You could have let me go. Let me hide. Why didn't you? He looked at her for a long moment. Because the last time I lost someone, I didn't fight hard enough. I won't make that mistake again. At exactly 3:00 p.m., the Meridian Technologies board meeting began. Emma watched from the side room, heart thudding. Alex sat at the head of the table, calm, composed, the very picture of a man about to be betrayed. Vincent stood, folder in hand, eyes gleaming with false righteousness. "It pains me to say this," he began, "but our CEO and a recent hire have been diverting company funds. I have proof." Emma's name was on the first page. She stepped forward, flanked by 2 FBI agents. Vincent's voice faltered, his face went pale. "Actually," Emma said, voice clear, "I have the proof." She laid her report on the table. "This isn't about diversion," she said, locking eyes with him. "It's about theft. Your theft." By the time the meeting ended, Vincent Harmon was in handcuffs. And for the first time in years, Emma Baker felt the ground under her feet steady again. Not because someone had saved her, but because she'd chosen not to run. Chapter 5. The call that changes everything. They called it post-coroner processing. The boardroom had been cleared. Vincent Harmon and 2 board members were arrested. The FBI had taken every hard drive, every financial ledger, every trace of the crime that had nearly destroyed everything. But in the aftermath, the hush after the explosion, Emma felt more shaken than triumphant. She sat on the windowsill of Alex's office, knees drawn up, her coat still on. Across the room, Alex stood by the wet bar, quietly pouring 2 glasses of water, like it was just another board meeting gone long. He offered her one. Their hands touched briefly. It startled her, how natural it felt. How terrifying. "You okay?" he asked. She exhaled slowly. "I don't know." Martha entered minutes later, holding Lily, now giggling at a string of keys she had commandeered from someone's desk. Emma stood quickly and scooped her daughter into her arms, the tension in her chest cracking like ice. Lily pressed her forehead against Emma's collarbone, warm and real. "You did good, kid," Martha said gently. Emma smiled. "I still don't know how we ended up here." Martha grinned. "A wrong number, a bottle of formula, and a man with a guilty heart." Alex didn't deny it, just looked at them. The baby, the woman, the life that had accidentally stepped into his and saved him. The following morning, Emma woke in the safe house one final time, disoriented by the quiet. No alarms, no fear, no emergency bags packed by the door. Just Lily, asleep in her crib, clutching the little plush elephant from the Meridian office, a toy that had become, in Emma's mind, a symbol of something too strange and perfect to explain. By 10 a.m., she was back at Meridian, not for work, for a decision. Alex stood by the window, staring down at the city as though the answers to all his failures were buried in the skyline. She stepped into the room, heart pounding. "You said you needed to talk." Alex turned, something unguarded in his face. "I owe you more than that." Emma waited. "There's a position I'd like to offer you," he said carefully. "Permanent, head of internal audit, reporting directly to the board." Emma blinked. "That's not a promotion, that's an empire." "You earned it," he said simply. She hesitated. "And Lily?" He smiled. "Daycare's got a spot open now, or—" "She's always welcome here, if you want her close." Emma stepped closer, her voice soft. "Why me, Alex? Really? Was this always about the audit? The evidence?" Alex didn't look away. "It started with a number I didn't recognize, and a baby I'll never forget." He reached into his wallet and pulled out something folded, worn. A photo. A woman holding a little girl with the same eyes as Lily. "Charlotte," he said, his voice catching. "She would have been 8 last month." Emma stared at the photo. Her breath hitched. "She had Lily's laugh," he whispered. "And for 3 years I've tried not to remember it, until you walked into my life." They didn't kiss. Not yet. But something passed between them in that moment. Not heat, not romance. Permission. To stay. To want. To build. 3 weeks later, Emma stepped into her new office, just down the hall from Alex's. A nameplate already waited. Emma Baker, Director, Internal Audit. She smiled, adjusting Lily in her carrier. The hallway smelled like fresh coffee and second chances. That night, after she tucked Lily into her crib, Emma opened the text thread. The one that started it all. "Emma, I hate to ask again, but I need $40.00 for Lily's formula." She reread it slowly. A message she had sent out of shame. That became the beginning of everything. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, then typed one new line. Emma, sometimes the wrong number is exactly where you were meant to be. The safe house still smelled like chamomile and old paint. It had been weeks since Emma last stepped inside, and yet, the moment she crossed the threshold, she felt it, that strange blend of fear and clarity that had filled this apartment when everything else had been falling apart. Martha was already inside, tidying the kitchen like she'd never left. She looked up and smiled, soft but tired. "I figured you'd come back," she said. Emma set down Lily's carrier near the couch. "I don't know why I did. Because this place was where you stopped running." Emma didn't argue. She walked through the small space slowly, touching each object like it might remember the version of her who'd lived here briefly, the woman who wasn't sure who to trust or whether she was being used or rescued. "Alex asked me to keep the lease," Martha said. "He thought you might want to see it again, when you felt ready." Emma turned, confused. "Why?" Martha shrugged. "He said everyone needs a place to remember what it took to survive." That night, Emma stayed. She didn't plan to, just meant to stop by, pick up a few things left behind. But Lily fell asleep early, and the soft creak of the floors, the gentle hum of the old radiator, it all felt familiar, and strangely enough hers. She sat at the table with a cup of tea, watching steam curl up into the quiet. The burner phone, long since disconnected, still sat in the kitchen drawer. She held it now, remembering the first message. "James, I hate to ask again." It had been a cry in the dark, one she never expected answered. And yet, someone had answered. The next morning, a knock came at the door. Emma opened it, heart stumbling. Alex stood there, hair wind-blown, wearing the navy peacoat she had once teased him for looking to Wall Street in. "I wasn't sure if I should come," he said. "I wasn't sure if I wanted you to," she replied honestly. He smiled. "At least we're consistent." She stepped aside, letting him in. They didn't talk at first, just moved quietly around each other. He warmed his hands on a mug she handed him. She bounced Lily on her hip while the baby cooed at the familiar stranger. Then Emma sat across from him. "I needed to see where I broke," she said. Alex's brow furrowed. "This is where everything cracked open," she continued. "Where I found out I was being accused of a crime. Where I had to choose whether I'd run or fight. This place saw the worst of me." Alex set his mug down. "It's all the best of you, too." Emma blinked. Chapter 7. The ledger she didn't ignore. It started with the folder she hadn't meant to reopen. Emma sat at her new desk, not borrowed, not temporary, and stared at the documents she had already reconciled, reviewed, and signed off on. Her new title was embossed on the plaque beside her monitor. Emma Baker, Director of Internal Audit. But something about the numbers kept tugging at her. Not fear, not paranoia. A gut feeling. The same one that told her, weeks ago, to look closer when no one else dared to. She trusted it now. She clicked open the backup file. The discrepancy was small. Too small, in fact, and that's what made it scream. A vendor payment processed twice, once through a shell routing number that didn't match any active accounts. The total? $39,870, 0 cents. Too little for board-level concern. Too exact to be an accident. Emma frowned. She flipped open her physical audit journal and found it. A similar amount, same vendor name, flagged 2 months ago. She had cleared it after Harmon's arrest, assuming it was part of the laundering trail they'd already exposed. But this wasn't old. This transaction was last week, and Harmon had been in custody for nearly a month. A man picked up the phone and called Alex directly. He answered on the second ring, voice low but alert. "Emma, we have a problem," she said. He didn't hesitate. "Come to my office." By the time she arrived, Alex had cleared his schedule. She set the printout in front of him. "I thought this trail ended with Harmon, but someone's still moving money." He stared at the sheet, reading every digit. Then he looked up. Vince didn't act alone. Emma nodded. "No. And whoever's still cleaning up the trail is sloppy. or desperate. Alex leaned back, rubbing a hand across his jaw. You think it's someone inside? Emma crossed her arms. I think it's someone who believes you stopped looking. For the next 3 days, they worked in tandem. Evenings at the office, Lily tucked in the crib beside Emma's desk, while they followed the new trail deeper into the foundation of Meridian. Each discovery led to another name. Each report opened up another lie. And finally, it led to a person neither of them had suspected. Samantha Pierce, assistant treasurer, soft-spoken, polished, 10 years with the company. She had approved 5 of the flagged transactions. Emma stared at her employee file. She never came up in the Harmon investigation. Alex nodded slowly. Because she helped bury the deeper entries, she probably volunteered to help the FBI to keep them looking at surface-level data. Emma felt a chill crawl down her spine, and now she's trying to erase the rest. That night, Emma stood in front of the large windows in Alex's office while he held Lily, the baby's small fingers tangled in the string of his tie. She's lighter, he said softly. Emma turned. What? Lily, she used to hold her fists tight, like she was bracing for something. She doesn't anymore. Emma walked toward them, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead. She's learning it's safe now. Alex looked at her. You are too. She didn't reply, but she didn't look away either. And that, for her, was a beginning. They didn't confront Samantha immediately. They built a case. Quietly, methodically. By the end of the week, they had a digital ledger with verified backdating, a paper trail of shell companies registered in Delaware and routed through offshore accounts, and a timeline of every unauthorized transfer signed under Pierce's name. Enough to bring her in? Emma asked. Alex shook his head. Enough to bring her down. But what Emma didn't know, what Alex hadn't told her yet, was that Samantha Pierce wasn't just an employee. She was his ex-wife's cousin, someone who had once stood at Charlotte's bedside and promised to take care of the family. He told Emma the next day. I didn't want to believe she was involved, he admitted. I kept thinking I'd made it personal. I almost didn't dig. Emma studied his face. But you did, because you promised me no more secrets. He nodded once. Because I meant it. And just like that, another wall between them fell. They reported Samantha to the FBI on a Monday morning. She was arrested by noon. It didn't make headlines, but inside Meridian, the ripple was massive. People stopped pretending, stopped whispering about Emma like she was a charity case, and started listening. That Friday, Emma stood in front of the entire finance team, presenting her audit reforms, clearer protocols, independent oversight, and quarterly reviews signed by her, not rubber-stamped by someone at the top. She ended the meeting with a simple sentence. No one will ever lose their job or their child's formula because someone else abused a position of power. There was silence. Alex in the back didn't clap. He just watched her like she was the strongest thing he'd ever seen. That night, in the elevator down, Emma leaned against the wall beside him. You okay? He asked. She nodded. I'm getting used to being someone people can't ignore. Alex smiled. You were always that. You just didn't see it yet. She looked up at him. And you? He held her gaze. I see everything now. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. Emma reached out and laced her fingers through his. And this time she didn't let go. Chapter 8. The Daycare Confession. The first time Alex saw Lily fall asleep in someone else's arms, he froze. It was a Tuesday, a soft, ordinary one. He had come down to Meridian's newly reopened on-site daycare to check on a delivery Emma had requested, a special hypoallergenic formula that had taken a week to track down. He had the small paper bag in one hand, a quiet kind of pride in his chest. Then he turned the corner and saw her, Lily, sprawled across the chest of a young daycare worker named Maggie, her tiny fingers clutching the hem of the woman's shirt, her eyelids fluttering in dream. Peaceful, safe, and not in his arms. He didn't understand why it hurt, only that it did. Emma found him later that day, standing by the daycare's glass partition like a man waiting for news he couldn't name. You okay? She asked. He startled, then relaxed at the sight of her. Yeah, just... Watching her, Emma followed his gaze. She likes it here, she said, her voice soft. They play piano in the mornings, read stories in the afternoon. She's calm when I pick her up. Alex didn't reply at first. Then, without looking at her, he said, I never watched Charlotte sleep in a place like this. Emma turned. She was too sick to go to daycare, he said. Too fragile to be around other kids. Everything in her world was filtered, sanitized, safe. She lived inside walls. He glanced at her, eyes shadowed. But Lily doesn't. She reaches for everything. She belongs to the world. Emma nodded. It scares me too. Alex smiled faintly. That she belongs? That I could lose her. Later that evening, they sat side by side on a bench outside the building. The Chicago air cool but forgiving, the sky bruised with evening. Lily was home with Martha for a few hours, a rare break they were both learning how to use. I lied to myself for years, Alex said quietly. I told myself I was protecting Charlotte by keeping the world out. Emma looked at him, listening. But I think I was really protecting me from the ache of losing her in pieces. His hands were clasped together, fingers interlaced tightly. You don't lose a child all at once, he continued. You lose them in echoes. You lose the first laugh, the last birthday, the sound of their name fading from mail you don't receive anymore. Emma's eyes brimmed with tears. I used to think that if I stayed away from love, he said, voice rough now, from anything messy or fragile or bright, I'd never have to feel that kind of loss again. He turned to her then. But then you texted me. Emma exhaled. Her voice, when it came, was low and certain. I was ashamed of that text for weeks, she said. It felt like failure, like proof I'd hit the bottom. She smiled bitterly. But now, I think it was the bravest thing I've ever done. Alex watched her. I asked for help, she continued, not because I thought someone would answer, but because Lily needed me to try. I didn't expect a reply. I never expected you. She paused. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't answered? He didn't hesitate. I'd still be breathing, he said, but I wouldn't be alive. The confession hung between them, soft, irrevocable. Then finally he said it. I love you, Emma. She blinked, not because she didn't feel the same, but because no one had said it to her like that before. Not with reverence, not like it was a promise. He should have said it back. Instead, she leaned in and touched her forehead to his, and whispered, then show me. The next day, Alex did, in a way she didn't expect. A team meeting, finance department, quarterly updates. Emma had just finished presenting when Alex stood and took the floor. I want to take a moment, he said, clearing his throat, to recognize someone. Emma glanced at him, startled. This company nearly fell apart from the inside out, he continued, and we survived because one woman, one mother, chose to speak up, even when she had every reason not to. Emma's chest tightened. He turned toward her fully. She walked into a boardroom with the FBI behind her and a baby waiting at home. She didn't ask for credit, but she deserves it. He paused, voice low now. Emma Baker didn't just save Meridian, she saved me. The room went silent, and then the applause started. Slow, steady, and then all at once. Emma didn't know what to do, so she stood, blinking fast, and nodded quietly. Afterward, as people filed out, she looked at Alex across the room. Their eyes met, and she mouthed the words, I love you too. Chapter 9. The ring he didn't plan to buy. Alex never believed in second rings. The first one had been simple. Platinum. Classic. Chosen by a much younger version of himself who thought love was something you confirmed with receipts and a rooftop dinner. He had worn it proudly for a time, until cancer unraveled everything and the vows became grief, and the ring meant failure. After Charlotte died, he put it in a drawer, and he promised himself he'd never open that drawer again. But this was different. He found himself standing in a small, unassuming jewelry shop near Lincoln Park, alone, unannounced, and entirely unprepared. Not because he hadn't thought about it, but because this version of love didn't give him time to rehearse. It didn't come with roses and violins and scripted candlelight. It came with text messages at midnight, with a crib in an office, with bottles next to board reports. And came with Emma. and a quiet kind of steadiness he hadn't known he needed, until she became the only voice that could quiet the ghosts. The jeweler, a soft-spoken man named Theo, watched him circle the cases. Looking for something specific? Alex nodded vaguely. Something that feels like a beginning. Theo smiled. Then, don't start with the diamonds. He led Alex to a back case, a smaller collection of understated bands. One caught his eye immediately. A gold ring, not bright, but brushed, soft in its shine. A single stone, set flush, not raised, like it was meant to be worn during life, not shown off for photographs. She'd hate anything flashy, Alex murmured. Theo nodded. Then you've already found it. Emma didn't notice the ring the first time. Not because she wasn't paying attention, but because he didn't kneel. He didn't make a speech. He simply placed the box on her desk one morning, beside her coffee. She opened it slowly, as if expecting something else. When she saw what was inside, her hands stilled. Her eyes flicked up to meet his. I don't want you to answer today, he said, gently. Or tomorrow. She blinked, breath caught. I just want you to know, I'm sure. The ring stayed in the drawer of her nightstand for 2 weeks. Not because she was unsure, but because she wanted to say yes for the right reasons. Not out of gratitude. Not out of safety. Not even for Lily. But because when she looked at Alex, she saw the life she didn't know she was allowed to want. And that took time to believe in. When she finally said yes, it wasn't over dinner. It wasn't during a trip or a holiday. It was during a rainstorm. Lily had a fever, the daycare was closed. Emma was trying to calm her in the back office, soaked from the dash through the parking lot. Alex arrived without being called. He entered the room, took off his coat, and didn't ask if she needed help. He just took the bottle from her hand and tested its warmth against his wrist, and whispered, "You're not alone in this." Emma stared at him, shirt damp, hair a mess, eyes focused entirely on her daughter. And she whispered back, "Yes." They didn't tell anyone for a week. Not because it was a secret, but because it felt sacred. Something small and quiet, and only theirs. Emma wore the ring on a chain around her neck, close, but not public, just for her to feel against her skin when the world felt loud. Alex didn't rush her. He just kissed her hand every night as he left, and smiled like someone who already knew how the story ended. When she finally slipped the ring on her finger, it was during a walk with Lily through Millennium Park. The baby had just fallen asleep in her stroller. The air smelled like spring and wind and city life. Emma paused by the fountain, held the ring in her palm for a long moment, and then slid it onto her finger. No audience, no flash, just a promise, a beginning. Later that evening, Alex found her in the kitchen of his condo, barefoot, humming to herself while slicing strawberries. He didn't notice at first. Not until she brushed past him, reached for the tea kettle, and the gold caught the light. He stared. "You're sure?" he whispered. Emma smiled, turning to face him. "I was always sure," she said softly. "I just had to believe I deserved to be." He kissed her like it wasn't the beginning of forever, but like forever had finally earned them. Chapter 10. The life she never asked for, but chose. Emma never imagined a life like this. Not in the daydreams she used to scribble in college notebooks. Not in the late-night fantasies she whispered to herself between diaper changes and rejection emails. Not even in the wildest flickers of hope when Alex Reed first replied to a text meant for someone else. She hadn't asked for a miracle. She had asked for $40, 0 cents. And what she got was a life. One she chose, piece by fragile piece. The wedding was small. Not because they couldn't afford a grand one. They could have bought out the Ritz and filled it with glass and gold and chandeliers the size of cars. But because Emma didn't need an audience, she needed a moment. They married in the garden behind Grandma June's old house, the same one Alex had quietly purchased months earlier, just to keep it from being torn down by developers. Lily wore a flower crown. Emma wore her mother's earrings, the only thing she had salvaged from that broken bridge. Martha officiated, holding a trembling page and smiling like she'd waited years to read it. And when Alex whispered his vows, he didn't promise the world. He promised to stay. to listen, to keep the lights on when she couldn't see, to hold their home steady even when storms knocked at the door. Afterward, they danced barefoot in the grass. Lily toddled between them in her white cotton dress, clutching a strawberry like a bouquet. Emma laughed so hard she cried and didn't wipe the tears away. Because for once, the tears didn't mean heartbreak. They meant arrival. In the months that followed, life didn't suddenly become perfect. Lily got sick, the water heater broke. A board member tried to push Emma out of her role for optics. But Emma, who once watered down her daughter's formula to make it last, didn't bend anymore. She stood at the board meeting with her ring glinting and her baby sleeping 2 doors down in the new in-office nursery, and said, "I didn't claw my way out of survival to become someone's symbol. I came to work. Let me." And they did. They learned. They listened. Because she'd earned that. And no one could take it from her again. Alex, for his part, learned how to soften. He laughed more. He played peekaboo. He burned pancakes. He missed deadlines because Lily said apple for the first time and he forgot how to breathe. And he loved her. Emma, with the kind of quiet, fierce devotion that doesn't announce itself. It just shows up. Every day. On the 1-year anniversary of the text message that changed their lives, Emma sat on the back steps of their home, Lily asleep upstairs, stars blinking above, and scrolled to the very top of their old message thread. She hadn't deleted it. Not once. She read it now, slowly. "Emma James, I hate to ask again, but I need $40, 0 cents for Lily's formula. I get paid Friday. I swear I'll pay you back." Then his response, "Alex, I think you have the wrong number." She smiled, tears brimming. Because no, she hadn't. Not really. Alex stepped outside, a blanket in his arms, 2 mugs of tea. He wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and didn't speak right away. Just sat beside her. Then he asked, quietly, "Would you still send that message?" Emma leaned her head against his shoulder. "I'd send it," she whispered, 1,000 times over, if it meant it would always lead to you. He took her hand, warm and calloused and sure, and kissed the ring he hadn't planned to buy. And beside her, not above her, not saving her, but with her, he whispered, "Then maybe fate isn't random. Maybe it's just waiting for us to ask. You were scared out of your mind, and you still fought. You still uncovered every lie. You still put your name on that report when you knew they might come after you. That wasn't the worst of you, Emma. That was the bravest." She looked down at Lily, then back at him. "Why me?" she asked again. "Of all the people you could have trusted with this, why did you trust the girl who begged for baby formula?" He was quiet a moment. Then he leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I get 100 texts a day, alerts, updates, staff requests, numbers and deals and noise. But that night," he looked up. "That message was human. It wasn't filtered or curated or polished. It was raw, real. And it reminded me of something I hadn't felt since I lost Charlotte. Urgent." Emma swallowed. "I thought I was helping you," she said. "But I think you were trying to save yourself." Alex nodded. "I was." A pause. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, weathered envelope. He handed it to her. Inside was a folded piece of paper, a note, in Charlotte's handwriting. Crayon red, a wobbly heart at the bottom. "Daddy, I love you even if you're tired. Don't forget you're good." Emma traced the childlike letters with her fingertips. "She left it in my briefcase the day she was admitted for the last time," Alex said, his voice low. "I found it too late." Emma felt her throat tighten. "And then you sent that message," he continued. "Out of nowhere, a stranger, a mother, begging, not for herself, but for someone small and hungry and innocent." He looked at her then, really looked. "I didn't forget, Emma, because of you." Later, they walked together through the quiet neighborhood, Emma pushing Lily's stroller, Alex beside her, with one hand in his pocket and the other brushing against hers, occasionally, like an echo of something that hadn't happened yet, but might. The snow had started again, soft and slow, the kind that dusts rooftops and makes everything look gentler than it is. Emma stopped at the corner, watching Lily bat at a snowflake. I made a promise to myself in this place, she said quietly. If we got out of this, if you were telling the truth, I wouldn't live small anymore. I wouldn't let fear make my decisions. She turned to him. So if you ever lie to me again about anything, I'll walk. Alex nodded, solemn. I believe you. And if you ever stop seeing me as your equal, not someone you rescued, but someone who rescued you back, I'm gone. He stepped closer. Then I'll never stop reminding you, he said softly, that I wasn't the one holding the line in that boardroom. You were. Silence. Then, I want to build something with you, he added, voice barely above a whisper. Not just a life, a partnership, on your terms, for real. Emma looked up at him, and for once she didn't feel afraid to want it too. That night, back in the safe house, Emma put Lily to bed and curled up in the old armchair with a blanket draped over her shoulders. The apartment was temporary. The danger was past. But what had happened here, the fear, the strength, the truth, would follow her forever. She opened a new page in her notebook and wrote a single line. This is where I stopped surviving and started choosing. Then she turned off the light and let herself sleep. Not as a guest, not as a fugitive, but as a woman who had found her place. Even if it came from a mistake. Especially because of it, the message that found its way home. They say the smallest choices often change everything. One wrong digit. One text sent in a moment of quiet desperation. One stranger who decided to answer instead of delete. Emma Baker never wanted a fairy tale, she just wanted enough. Enough food, enough sleep, enough time to hold her daughter and not feel like the world was crumbling beneath her. But the universe, in its quiet, broken way, gave her more than survival. It gave her a beginning. Not because she deserved it, not because she was ready, but because she was brave enough to ask, even when she didn't think anyone was listening. And Alex Reed, a man who had once walked through grief with his hands in his pockets and his heart locked behind numbers and suits, found something he never expected. Forgiveness, not from the world, from himself, because love isn't always loud or obvious or perfect. Sometimes it arrives gently in a crib next to your desk, in a laugh you haven't heard in years, in the kind of woman who doesn't need to be rescued, only seen. They live in a house that smells like coffee and lavender shampoo. Lily is learning to read. Emma is back in school, finishing the degree she once gave up. Alex? He no longer checks his phone like it's a weapon. He checks it like a lifeline. Because sometimes the wrong number turns out to be the only message that ever truly mattered. If you're still here, still listening, maybe this story wasn't just Emma's. Maybe it was yours too. Maybe you've sent messages into silence, praying someone would answer. Maybe you've felt invisible, small, unworthy of more. But hear this now. You are not alone. Your worth does not disappear when life falls apart. And the mistakes you thought would break you, they might just be leading you to exactly where you were meant to be. Have you ever made a wrong turn that brought you something unexpectedly beautiful? Drop your story in the comments. We're listening, and love, as always, finds its way.